Hello everyone, welcome to Electric Life. I'm John Dixon. Well, this is the third episode, and I really appreciate the people that watched the first two episodes that I put out in the last few days. Got some great comments and good feedback. Some people subscribed, which is a good thing. And I would suggest that if you liked what you saw and in anticipation of what I'm going to bring out going forward, that you turn on your notifications so you're aware of the new episodes as they come out. This next episode is an interview with a gentleman by the name of Robert Llewellyn. And Robert is the founder and innovator and the person behind the Fully Charged Live show and podcast. And basically, I was out at their show in Vancouver recently, as some of you may have seen with my interview with Sandy Monroe. And they've committed to come back there next year. And we're trying to encourage them to also come out our way here in Eastern Canada, in Ontario. Certainly be a great draw from Quebec, Ontario, Michigan, and New York. So they said they're definitely considering that. But Robert is a really interesting guy, and I really appreciate his time because he was at the show and he took a few minutes in between being on panels and circling around and doing everything that's involved with a large undertaking like that. So have a look, see what you think. I think there was some interesting things that came out of this short interview. And going forward, I've got lots of ideas in my mind of what I want to do in the area of electric and sustainability. So appreciate any input, suggestions, and ideas. And that's all I can say for now. So have a good one, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Say goodbye. Hello, everyone. I'm here at Fully Charged Live, as I mentioned to you the other day, and I have a very special guest, Mr. Robert Llewellyn. Welcome.
Thank you very much
for coming on my inaugural YouTube episode.
It's a great honor. It's a great honor.
Thank you. I want to congratulate you. This is a phenomenal. I heard your fireside. You've had a great turnout. You're going to be tracking attendance at all?
Oh yeah, we do. We don't know because I like to ask in the morning, and I look at them all because they haven't added it up. So we don't know figures yet. We won't really till Sunday, but it's certainly it's way above what we were. There's a kind of requirement level. If there's not that many people, it upsets the all the exhibitors, and there's not enough people, and that's the embarrassing bit. We're way beyond that.
Okay, so, excellent. Yeah, because it's very gratifying. I'm sure you see the lineups outside coming in both mornings, and it's great. So. And I mentioned this to you yesterday, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but hopefully we can get you out to Eastern Canada, like Ontario, Great Lakes, maybe in the next year or two.
I don't want to say anything, but a conversation along those lines was had last night.
Okay, excellent.
That's
excellent. And we'll be certainly there, whether it's myself, John Dixon from Electric Life, and or the Tesla Owners Club.
Right.
We're there to help you in any way, shape, or form.
That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful to hear.
The first time I actually saw you, I was aware of you, but you may not remember this because I know you're a pretty popular guy. About 4 years ago, a guy named Zeb Halleck had you on with some Tesla owners. I think he was North Carolina Owners Club.
I remember we did it down the line
on Zoom. And he invited some of the other clubs, and I saw you on that.
Right.
So that got me hooked on yourself and the channel, and the rest is history.
Right.
So great. So the first thing I want to ask you is, I guess, did you expect Fully Charged Live to be where you are today?
No. I mean, it's a remarkable turn of events. So, I mean, I think I can briefly explain it that I just started the YouTube channel in 2010, a long time ago.
Early days.
And that was really as a result of, I've had a long career in traditional broadcast television. And I went to I sort of sensed that something was happening with electric vehicles. And I went to the BBC with one of their best producers, a guy who works, a BBC employee. Mm-hmm. So really with a good kind of background, and we pitched the idea of Fully Charged to the BBC, and they were really polite. They were really excited to do something with the two of us. They wanted me to do something. They just did not understand. Right. They didn't get what it meant. What are you talking about? Electric? What do you mean electric cars? And this was 2009.
Back then.
Yeah.
Was the Leaf out then?
No. I had a Mitsubishi i-MiEV.
I remember that.
And there was the Tesla Roadster.
We had them here
that
too.
was about it.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Yeah.
And they just didn't get it. And they weren't rude. They weren't like, dismissively rude, but they didn't understand it. And therefore I made a little pilot called the Fully Charged Show, or Fully Charged, which I put on YouTube. And that kind of, some people, and even now that's had about 5,000 views. It's never done much.
Right.
But it kind of set the parameters of what we were trying to say. And that then grew from there. So it wasn't, and certainly for the first 3 years, say, it was really irregular. It was when, Volkswagen said, do you want to come and see this experimental electric car? Or Nissan. I drove the Nissan Leaf before it was the Leaf, when it was a mule car. It was the same drivetrain, but in a different vehicle. So all those early things happened, but it was very, like once a month, maybe, you know, so maybe 10, 12 shows a year I would do.
Right.
And I was busy doing other things, and then it gradually became a little bit more regular. It's such a slow process. And then I met Dan Caesar, who helps run these shows, and he said, what about doing a live show? And I was absolutely dismissive. I said, no one's going to come. It's just going to be some Nissan Leaf drivers who are annoyed about the range and the charging infrastructure, and they're going to moan. It's going to be the most awful thing. And I was wrong.
Yeah.
So it was very much Dan's energy and drive that pushed it into that, and that kind of helped the channel. Then we started making regular shows and getting other presenters in, and that's kind of grown over the years into what it is.
Well, I've
now.
noticed on your YouTube channel just the last year or two, some of the new hosts that you've got, the video reviews you were doing, they're very good. They're very personable. They're very natural. I'm talking about the hosts themselves, but
really
great content and great editing. And not that I'm an expert, but
Yeah.
very engaging. So kudos to you on that.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll be looking to expand outside of, like, perhaps Australia and places like that?
Yeah, we do a live show.
I should know that.
Yeah.
We'll have to cut that. So, but I know you were down in LA, in the LA area,
Yes, we were down in San Diego.
San Diego,
and before that in Austin, Texas.
Right.
But we're thinking that we quite like Canada, and if you're in a Canadian city that's not that far from the American border,
Yeah.
just saying,
Yeah.
it's kind of, there's some advantages there.
Yeah.
You know, from our point of view, I think there is, you know, and I also think that the Canadian market is, I think it's what we were just talking about with Sandy Munro, the IRA thing in America has changed the market there. So you know, we have a lot of contact with the Chinese companies in Europe, bringing in cars from Europe. And I mean, I think there's plenty of reasons to be, you know, questioning about the Chinese government and what's happening, but there's no question that the cars they're making are extraordinary and hugely cheaper. So, you know, tens of thousands of dollars cheaper.
It'll be interesting to see. He was talking about, you know, BYD and some of these companies coming into the States. So I'm you know, be interesting to see what happens here in Canada.
Yeah.
You know, I'm from Ontario. We're not quite as progressive. I was listening to the minister yesterday and the head of BC Hydro, and some of the things that they're doing here, the initiatives are amazing. Wish we could get our government to look at some of that, but we'll get there. Changing directions a little bit. I asked Sandy this yesterday, and I've been thinking an awful lot about this the last little while. You know, I love this show, and I think it's everything's awesome about it, but I think it's fair to say that pretty well everybody that comes here is of like mind.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of, in other words, we're sort of preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
So how do you, and I know you've talked about this a little bit in some of the panels, but how do we, even on our own lives, or people like Josh and I that, you know, have look at YouTube channels and just starting, how do we reach people that are not maybe apathetic, that might be a little bit too severe, but are not really engaged, they don't really pay attention? Do you believe in climate change? Yeah. Are you doing much about it? Not really. I'm busy with my kids, I'm busy at my work, you know, they don't really read the news. And so how do we get those people? And I'll tell you that Sandy was talking about the demographic. We were both saying how we thought it was much higher than we thought age-wise, people here.
Yeah.
So they're already engaged. He was talking about young people, like under 16.
Yeah.
And there's some stories that he told me about how they knew of his channel and knew of electric cars. So do you have any advice on how someone like myself or anybody else could help influence the people that are not aware?
I mean, because I think there is you know, there's definitely I think it's a minority of people who are, I can't think of another word to describe, but hostile, just totally into
almost impossible to move.
And there's nothing you can do about that. But you're right, there is an enormous group of people who aren't interested, and I think it is it's a really complicated. I've become increasingly fascinated by the psychology of technology change as opposed to the actual technology. And my argument now is the resistance to electric cars is entirely psychological. It's not the technology works. You know, you can be utterly uninterested in it and drive it. So my wife is an interesting example in that because of me, she's driven electric cars. She's in a reading group. There's 8 women. They've all been in the same group, like a book group, for a long time, 30 plus years. And I guarantee none of those women are the slightest bit interested in cars at all. They don't discuss it when they're together. And yet now 4 of them have electric cars out of that group because they've asked Judy, what's this thing? Is that one of Robert's weird cars? Yeah. What's it like? It's just a car, shut up. She doesn't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Well, how do you drive it? You just get in and drive like a car. And I thought that's quite interesting. And I can't use the language she uses. She's Australian, quite rude language, but she's so dismissive of it of anxieties, and they go, what about if you run? You don't run out because it goes, at you, and it's really annoying. I've never run out, I've driven all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, she just doesn't want to talk about it. And actually there's something in that you don't make a big, you know, if you drive an electric car, you're going to help the environment.
Yeah.
No, you're not, it's a car. It's just not
The practical side, just being
just use it,
yeah.
and but that's quite easy, and sort of in a sense an easy thing. It is when I don't do it very often, but I've done maybe a dozen talks in schools. So this is to senior high school students, and they are really. They're so much more open-minded. Mm-hmm. They're often critical of the idea of a car. They say we should all use public transport, we should use bicycles, we should walk. Yeah. You know, the cars just screw everything up. But then but then I sort of go, you're absolutely right. But if you are going to use a car when it's wet and raining and you've got to carry a load of shopping and a small child, an electric one's the one.
Even if you rent one or whatever.
Even if you rent one, and that's interesting. And but how you get outside. You know, we know from the questionnaires we've done in previous shows that the majority of the people who come to these events don't have an electric car. Oh. It's about a third do and about 2/3 don't. I don't know about this particular show, but in general that's been the case. But they're interested. But you're right, they're already effectively
the right state of mind. Anyway.
They're in the right state of mind.
Because I just got my wife into an EV. She's driving a Hyundai Ioniq 5. She loves it. She didn't like the only one screen and a Tesla and whatnot. I've been driving Teslas 10.5 years, so I'm certainly converted. But I talked about all this with my family, and after a while, it's too much Tesla. They glaze over. We were talking about this at dinner last night. But my son's very argumentative, and he gets it. But he's like, Dad, you can't preach to people.
No,
you can't tell people what they need to do. They're not going to want to listen to you. So I'm trying to figure out ways, maybe with humor.
Yeah.
And and somebody else said today, I met them outside, one of our members, that just like you talked about, education at schools.
Yes.
Just going to do a little seminar or a little meeting or bring cars into the shop and things like that. So those are things I'm going to certainly look at.
I mean, that was one of the most successful talks I did, which was at a school in the south of England, where the science teacher had invited me to come along, and and I was in my Tesla, and he said, "Oh, I've just asked the caretakers that if we can drive the car into the gym." It was in the gymnasium or the big hall in the school. I'd never been there. I was going, "No, you don't need to do that." And he went, "No, it's all right, we can do it." And they tested the floor. So what happened, there was like 60 kids there waiting in a little stage, and then I drove in the car, and they were, and this is when Teslas were really new in the UK. There's only a few.
I thought you were going to say, no, you can't bring it in because of the fumes.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, So I drove it in, and then I propped the front, and all the doors, and I did the talk. And that was incredible impact that had on those kids, who are now in there. This is probably, 8 years ago, so they're now,
Well, that's what you hope, that they'll mention it to their parents will see them watching it on YouTube and that kind of thing. Sandy told me some hilarious stories about meeting a 7-year-old kid who said, do I have the pleasure of meeting the illustrious Sandy Munro?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and the kids run after him when he's driving his car in their little court where he lives, and they're 8, 9, 10 years old, and they know all about it, so that's certainly a good perspective.
There was one family I met on our first live show in the UK when we really didn't know what was going to happen and how it was going to work, and the Tesla Owners Club, it was at a motor racing circuit.
Will Feely.
Yes. So they all came along because they're where the public parked.
They were doing shuttles.
They had to do quite a long drive, a really awkward road all the way around. And so I met this family like late in the day of the first day, and they said, "Oh, we've had a wonderful day. It's been amazing." And the little kid was like staring up at me, and I said, "Have you had a good time?" And he went, "We went in a Tesla. It's electric." He explained it to me. I went, "Did you this morning?" But the next day, the following day, I heard, because I was standing next to one of the organisers of the radio, going, "We need to have a discussion about the Tesla Owners Club." And I went, "Oh, what's happened?" And they said, "There's a statutory speed limit. This is a service roads for motor racing, 20 miles an hour."
I heard that. They got in trouble.
104 miles an hour.
They were doing insane runs, probably.
And they said, "A car just gone past me, I've got a speed gun, it was doing 104 miles an hour and it was full of screaming children." Do you think, maybe we need to kind of calm it down a bit, guys?
Amazing.
And these are really narrow, they're not big roads, these are narrow, little straight roads that run between corners on, where the service cars go. Anyway,
well, listen, we could go on and on. I know you've got to get to the next session. I got a little gift for you. If you humor me, at least wear it once and take a picture for me.
Oh, that's very cool.
This is the new channel, and there's my little saying I stole from somebody. There
There's
is
no Planet B. Very good.
And it's made out of sustainable material and whatnot, so.
So awesome.
hopefully,
I don't deserve it.
hopefully-
That's
well,
wonderful.
you do,
Thank you.
more than deserve it.
Thank
So,
you very
I want
much.
to thank you very much, and I'm going to be here for the remainder of the day, and
Right.
hopefully if you end up coming to the eastern part of Canada,
Yeah.
we'll help you out, and I will probably come back here next year as well. So
Great stuff.
thanks
Really
very
good.
much, Robert.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.